feel like right. His lips were inches from mine. His breath, warm, heavy, dangerous, mixed with the trembling rhythm of my own. The sound of rain tapping on the window was the only witness to what was about to happen. I knew what it meant if I didn't stop him now. I knew exactly how deep this fall would take me. But in that moment, wrong began to feel like right. His fingers traced the line of my jaw, slow, deliberate. I felt my heartbeat stutter. My mind screamed no, but my body whispered just once more. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice rough, teasing, almost pleading. And just like that, all my resistance dissolved into the silence of that question. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The moment I leaned in, our lips met, and everything I thought I was loyal to slipped into the background. Studio microphone. Hey guys, before I take you deeper into this story, don't forget to like this video, share it if it hits home, and subscribe to the channel for more true confessions like this. Trust me, what you're about to hear is not just another love story. It's what happens when temptation feels sweeter than love itself. Kiss mark. I wasn't supposed to meet him that night. It was a business dinner, formal, harmless, predictable. My husband was supposed to come, but he canceled at the last minute, as usual. So I went alone, dressed in that black dress he never noticed anymore. I didn't plan to be seen. I didn't plan to be wanted. But when he looked at me from across the table, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: attention. His name was Ethan. A colleague from another firm, the kind of man whose presence commanded the room without even trying. He laughed like he had nothing to prove, and listened like every word you said mattered. That combination, it's lethal for a woman who's been ignored for too long. At first, it was innocent. Small talk, flattery, a harmless drink. Then came that accidental brush of his hand against mine. I remember the electricity, how my skin tingled as though my body remembered a language I'd forgotten. "Your husband must be lucky," he said softly. I smiled, but it wasn't genuine. "He used to be," I whispered. That was the moment everything shifted. The unspoken truth between us, two lonely souls pretending to be complete. The air grew heavy with tension neither of us wanted to name. When he offered to walk me to my car, I said yes. When he lingered by my door, I didn't move. And when he finally leaned in, I didn't pull away. The rain poured harder, like the world itself wanted to wash away my sin. But nothing could. Not the rain, not the guilt, not the trembling confession in my chest. Because for the first time in a long time, I felt alive. Somewhere deep down, I knew this wasn't just a mistake. It was the beginning of my undoing. But at that moment, when his hands slid to the back of my neck and his lips found mine again, I told myself one beautiful lie. It's only tonight. And that's how my destruction began. His name was Ethan, the kind of man who made silence feel like music and guilt taste like honey. It started small. Just little things. A text at midnight saying, "Can't sleep, are you up?" A glance that lingered too long. A joke that was too private for friends. At first, I told myself I was only flirting with danger, not diving into it. But temptation has a funny way of sounding like reason when your heart is starving. I remember that one Thursday evening. My husband, Marcus, was on another business trip. The house smelled like loneliness. The TV hummed with noise that didn't reach me. Then Ethan called. "I'm outside. Just wanted to see your face for a minute." I should have said no. I should have told him to go home. But curiosity and craving danced together, and my hand turned the doorknob before my mind caught up. He stood there, dark jeans, unbuttoned shirt, rain clinging to his hair. His eyes found mine, and everything inside me went quiet. Not peace, but surrender. "Just 1 minute," I whispered. "1 minute's all I need," he said. The air between us pulsed. He stepped closer. I stepped back. But only until my back hit the wall, and his breath filled the space between my neck and reason. That night, temptation stopped feeling like a secret. It became a presence, alive, hungry, and unstoppable. I knew the risk. I knew how wrong it was. But something about him made every no in my body melt into a trembling yes. We didn't even kiss that night. But when he left, the walls still trembled with everything that almost happened. Hey, before I go deeper into this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. This isn't just a confession, it's a storm I barely survived, and I want you to feel every wave with me. The next day, everything changed. He started showing up more, at my office, at the cafe I loved, even once outside the yoga studio. Every time, he'd say something that slipped under my skin. You look like you haven't been touched in years. You hide your hunger well. And every time, I'd smile like it didn't break something inside me. I wasn't falling anymore. I was sliding, fast. I stopped noticing Marcus's calls. I started wearing perfume Ethan liked. Even my reflection began to look borrowed. Temptation had stopped whispering. Now, it commanded. That's when the guilt began to morph, not into regret, but into addiction. Because by then, I didn't just want Ethan. I needed him. I remember the sound of rain that evening, soft at first, like fingertips on glass, before it grew heavier, drowning out every rational thought I had left. I shouldn't have been there. I shouldn't have let him in. But the truth? I wanted to. He stood at my door, drenched, eyes burning through me with a kind of hunger that wasn't loud. It was quiet, patient, dangerous. The kind that waits until your conscience gets tired, until your body stops pretending it doesn't want what it wants. Can I come in? Just 4 words, simple, polite, yet they cracked something inside me wide open. I should have said no. I should have remembered my vows, my promises, the life waiting just a few blocks away. But instead, I stepped aside. And the moment the door closed, I knew I was already gone. The room was dim, lit only by the amber glow of a lamp. I could feel his breath before his hands even touched me, slow, testing, like he was asking for permission he already knew he had. When his fingers brushed against mine, it was like the world tilted. Everything I thought was steady, suddenly wasn't. He didn't rush. He watched me. He read me. And somehow, I let him. Tell me to stop, he whispered. I can't, I breathed back. That was it, the moment temptation stopped feeling like sin, and started feeling like home. We moved without thinking, his hands tracing my spine, my breath catching against his shoulder. The rain outside became a rhythm, matching the pulse inside the room. It didn't feel like cheating then. It felt like being seen for the first time in forever. Somewhere between our lips and our lies, reality blurred. I wasn't thinking about the man waiting for me at home, the one who'd stopped noticing when I smiled or sighed. I wasn't thinking about consequences. Just warmth. Just the taste of being wanted. And maybe that's the cruel part of temptation, it never feels wrong until it's over. Halfway through, when his voice broke against my name, I felt my heart splinter in two. One part drowning in guilt, the other gasping for air in the intoxication of his touch. He kissed me like he was trying to rewrite every lonely night I'd endured. And I let him. Because for a while, it felt like rescue. But it wasn't rescue. It was destruction, wearing the perfume of desire. And if you're still listening right now, my secret listener, please, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Stories like mine, they're not just tales of passion. They're warnings wrapped in whispers. So like, share, and subscribe, because the next part? It's where the guilt begins to taste sweeter than pleasure. I used to think guilt was a passing thing. Something that flares up for a moment, then fades once the pleasure outweighs the conscience. But no. It lingers. It breathes in your silence. It watches you when you try to smile. And in my case, it slept beside me every night. I remember that morning clearly. I woke up beside him, Eli. His hand was still on my waist, warm, heavy, claiming. The sunlight filtered through the hotel blinds, kissing his face with a glow I should have adored. But instead, I felt hollow. The sheets smelled like lust and lavender soap. The same scent I'd used at home, with my husband. That was my breaking point. Because, in that moment, I couldn't tell whose touch my body was still craving. I slipped out of bed quietly, watching him sleep. He looked peaceful, as if we hadn't just shattered something sacred. The man who'd once made me laugh through my loneliness was now the reason I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. "If you're still here, I'll lose myself completely," I whispered, though part of me knew I already had. I didn't go home right away. I drove to the lake instead, parked, and watched the ripples move across the water. The air felt thick, like it carried the weight of my secret. That's when the guilt fully arrived, not like a storm, but like a slow drowning. I saw flashes of my husband's face, the way he always believed in me, trusted me, loved me without second thoughts. He'd once told me, love isn't tested when things are easy. It's tested when you want to leave, but stay. But I didn't stay. I strayed. And now I carried that betrayal in my veins like a second bloodstream. Later that night, Eli texted me. "You okay?" I stared at the message for a long time. I wanted to say no. I wanted to say I wish I could undo us. But instead, I typed. "Yeah. Just thinking. Thinking." That word became my mask. My lie. My prison. When I got home, my husband was on the couch, half asleep, the TV still playing. He looked so peaceful, so unaware. I walked past him with a smile I had to force, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "Good night, baby." He smiled in his sleep. And that smile broke me more than any confession ever could. Because I realized something cruel about infidelity. It doesn't always get exposed. Sometimes, it just eats you alive slowly, from the inside. A week passed. Then 2. And though Eli's touch still burned under my skin, guilt had already replaced desire. He'd call sometimes, his voice low and soft, asking if I missed him. But I couldn't answer honestly anymore. Every time I thought of him, I also saw my husband's smile. The guilt had become my companion. A shadow that reminded me of what I'd risked, and what I'd ruined. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, I whisper to my listeners now, voice trembling through the mic. Because maybe if we all confess a little, it won't hurt as much to remember. But that's a lie too. Because remembering temptation felt like the right thing at the time. But God, it destroyed me. I've replayed that night more times than I can count, the taste of his lips, the sound of my pulse beating faster than reason, the way his breath drowned out every ounce of guilt I had left. I shouldn't have gone there. I shouldn't have stayed. But if you've ever been touched by someone who sees through you, you know how easy it is to lose yourself in that kind of sin. If you're new here, please, hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and share this story. Because this is my last confession. It was late. The house was quiet except for the hum of my husband's car pulling into the driveway hours after I'd already slipped into bed pretending to be asleep. But before that, before the silence, there was him. The one who knew how to turn loneliness into something dangerously beautiful. He used to whisper things that felt like promises but were really traps. He'd say, "I want to know every part of you." And I let him. The office. The hallway. The back seat of his car parked by the old diner on Lincoln Street. Every place became a confession booth where my body spoke the sins my mouth couldn't admit. But the thrill started to fade when I realized. He wasn't addicted to me. He was addicted to the chase. Every text he sent dripped with hunger, but behind that hunger was absence. A void that no kiss could fill. And yet, I kept answering. Because I was lonely. Because I was desperate to be seen. Because his lies sounded like truth, and my lies felt like survival. I remember the last time I saw him. It was raining, that kind of soft drizzle that makes everything smell like renewal. But I wasn't feeling renewed, I was falling apart. He looked at me, eyes raw with a kind of regret I'd never seen before. And he said, "You were never supposed to fall for me." I laughed through the ache. Neither were you. Then he touched my face, gently, like I was something fragile, and kissed me one last time. It wasn't lust anymore. It was goodbye wrapped in pain. When he left, I stood there under the rain, soaked, trembling, realizing I had built my escape inside another cage. And when I got home, my husband was waiting. He smiled, kissed my forehead, told me dinner was in the oven. And that's when it hit me. The two men in my life didn't really see me. They saw what they wanted from me. And I let them. I've never told anyone this story before. But tonight, I'm sharing it here because silence feels heavier than shame. If you've ever felt torn between what's right and what feels real, you'll understand. Sometimes temptation isn't evil, it's just a mirror reflecting what you've been missing. But the reflection always fades. And when it does, you're left with the truth you were running from all along. So yeah, temptation felt right. But it destroyed me. Before I go, if this story hit a nerve, if you've ever felt that kind of dangerous connection, please subs. His name was Ethan, the kind of man who made silence feel like music and guilt taste like honey. It started small. Just little things. A text at midnight saying, "Can't sleep, are you up?" A glance that lingered too long. A joke that was too private for friends. At first, I told myself I was only flirting with danger, not diving into it. But temptation has a funny way of sounding like reason when your heart is starving. I remember that one Thursday evening. My husband, Marcus, was on another business trip. The house smelled like loneliness. The TV hummed with noise that didn't reach me. Then Ethan called. "I'm outside. Just wanted to see your face for a minute." I should have said no. I should have told him to go home. But curiosity and craving danced together, and my hand turned the doorknob before my mind caught up. He stood there, dark jeans, unbuttoned shirt, rain clinging to his hair. His eyes found mine, and everything inside me went quiet. Not peace, but surrender. "Just 1 minute," I whispered. "1 minute's all I need," he said. The air between us pulsed. He stepped closer. I stepped back. But only until my back hit the wall, and his breath filled the space between my neck and reason. That night, temptation stopped feeling like a secret. It became a presence, alive, hungry, and unstoppable. I knew the risk. I knew how wrong it was. But something about him made every no in my body melt into a trembling yes. We didn't even kiss that night. But when he left, the walls still trembled with everything that almost happened. Hey, before I go deeper into this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. This isn't just a confession, it's a storm I barely survived, and I want you to feel every wave with me. The next day, everything changed. He started showing up more, at my office, at the cafe I loved, even once outside the yoga studio. Every time, he'd say something that slipped under my skin. "You look like you haven't been touched in years. You hide your hunger well." And every time, I'd smile like it didn't break something inside me. I wasn't falling anymore. I was sliding, fast. I stopped noticing Marcus's calls. I started wearing perfume Ethan liked. Even my reflection began to look borrowed. Temptation had stopped whispering. Now, it commanded. That's when the guilt began to morph, not into regret, but into addiction. Because by then, I didn't just want Ethan. I needed him.